The Gilded Age is a time between Civil War and World War I, around 1870s to 1890s, that marked the growth of industry and wealth which supported materialism and political corruption. But also during this time, writers contributed the literature that flourished in this period, and we will be talking about four of them. The first writer is Mark Twain, and here's Amy about Mark Twain.
Samuel Langhorne Clemens, more commonly known by his pen name, Mark Twain, was born on November 30th, 1835 in Florida. When he was 12, his father died of pneumonia, and when he was 13, he left to become a printer's apprentice. After 2 years, he joined his brother's Orion's newspaper as a printer and an editorial assistant. It was from there that he found his love for writing. He eventually became known as the father of American literature through his success as a writer. His first novel, published in 1873, was called The Gilded Age. It was written in collaboration with Charles Dudley Warner, expressing the jaded displays of wealth and excess of America's upper class. He illustrates corruption as being eaten deep into the hearts and minds of the people. He is best known for his novels about boyhood life on the Mississippi River in mid-19th century. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Both of these books have never lost their places as required reading in schools, and they remain as templates for young adult fiction. In Huckleberry Finn, the sequel of Tom Sawyer, Twain illustrates the failure of Reconstruction in post-Civil War. He satirizes slavery and speaks strongly against the continued poor treatment of Black Americans overall. Mark Twain also believed that laughter was the only really effective weapon. So he used humor and satire to become successful and to influence readers throughout the nation. Through the use of satirical literature and fictional stories, Twain is able to criticize American corruption, war, slavery, and racism at the same time. Society today looks at Mark Twain as the icon of American literature, as he was able to unveil the corruption of racism and slavery through the use of his realistic ideals and satires in his stories. He was inspired by Henry James, as their works overlap from a radically different point of view. And to tell you more about Henry James, here's Anthony.
Henry James was born in 1843 in New York City. He was one of the major figures in transatlantic literature, which is based on North American and European literature. James' works are focused on conflicts between imaginative protagonists and their difficult environments. His works became known for showing creative experiences depicting on political and social views. His novel, The Bostonians, as you can see here, was one of his greatest works. The political and moral view of this book relates to feminism and the general role of women, such as how women became well educated to put their knowledge and skills to work for the public good. Another novel that he published was The Golden Bowl. It gave an ideal understanding of political views. The book mentions the role of freedom to men in society. Henry James became one of his generation's most well-known writers and remains so to this day. Henry James was a great male writer in the Gilded Age, but not all great writers were males. There were also great female writers. One great female writer was Helen Hunt Jackson. And here's Christian D to give you more insight on Helen Hunt Jackson.
Now on to Helen Hunt Jackson. Helen Hunt Jackson was born on October 18, 1830 in Amherst, Massachusetts. She was an extremely inspirational United States author and writer who wrote after the deaths of her family. She also became an activist on behalf of the Native Americans on improving the Native American community. One of the two books she wrote was A Century of Dishonor, which was about chronicle experiences of each Native American in the United States focusing on injustices. Helen Hunt Jackson attempted to change the government ideas towards the Native Americans, which had the effects of the 1871 Indian Appropriation Act when it drew to the public. She had hoped to awaken the conscience of American people and their representatives to the flagrant wrongs they had been doing to the American Indians. Now, her second book she wrote was Ramona. Ramona portrays the life of a mixed Scots Native American girl who suffers from racial discrimination and goes through hardships as well. In the story, Alessandro's tribe was driven off their land and was forced to settle in California. They were also forced to give up their house and as well as their farm tools to the Americans that bought their land. Helen Hunt Jackson cared deeply for the Indians that lived in California. She cared enough to undermine her health and as well as to watch over them for the last remaining few years of her life to bettering their lives. In 1882, Jackson was appointed the Commissioner of the Indian Affairs and assigned to visit and report the conditions of each American Indian living in California to make sure all was well. Helen Hunt Jackson was very influential to many readers, but later on she died to stomach cancer in 1895 in San Francisco. In the same city that Helen Hunt Jackson had died, a great writer named Jack London was born. With that said, here's Sam to give you more info.
Thank you, Christian. Jack London was born in San Francisco in 1876. Growing up, the majority of his early life was scarred by the bitterness of poverty. He dropped out of school at a very young age of 14 to work and support his family. Many years after, until his writing success at 24, his life was a downward cycle of toil. When London started writing, his works contained his thoughts on the subject of socialism. One of the works that showed this was his book, People of the Abyss. As he writes about the experiences in a fluid and narrative style, making the ideas and the social structure very clear. Another book he wrote was called The Iron Heel. That stressed future changes to society and politics while paying much less attention to technological changes. London also wrote newspaper articles in Chinese and Japanese in a demeaning way. Many of London's readers were influenced by the newspaper articles as well as essays such as The Yellow Peril, If Japan Awakens China, and Unparalleled Invasion, joined with the demeaning remarks toward all Asians. He became the highest paid, most popular novelist and short story writer of his day, and his works appealed not to a few, but to millions of people around the world. Along with his books, London was widely known for his personal exploits. He was a celebrity who had a colorful and controversial personality and was often in the news. Generally fun-loving and playful, he could be combative and was quick to side with the underdog against injustice or oppression of any kind. He was a fiery and eloquent public speaker, and much sought after a lecture on socialism and other economic and political types. Despite his avowed socialism, most people considered him a living symbol of rugged individualism.
Although the purpose of the Gilded Age was to bring back economic stability following the war, in reality it was less gilded, or gold, than most people believed. The government only supported monopolies and the wealthy, but since the majority of the population was the workers and the lower class, many suffered from high unemployment and mass poverty.